Hello, good morning. Welcome to DFS Coach Talk. I am your host, Josh Davis, also known as Crash. Today is Sunday, November 26, 2023, and I am here to go over Week 12 in the NFL with my DFS overview, game by game, and then the top plays and Prizepicks top bets. So if you're new to DFS Coach Talk, we would love to have you join us. First of all, if you're new to the channel, if you would hit the like button and then hit subscribe. After you've done those two things, if you would hit the alarm bell, that way you'll let you know our newest podcast has gone live. If you're new to DFS Coach Talk, you can join us on Twitter. Send me a DM at JPDavis1982 or at DFS Coach Talk. You can also email me, jpdavis1982@gmail.com. And we have memberships that start as low as $4.99 a week. So we would love to have you join us. We have a very family-friendly, very positive and encouraging community in our Discord, a lot of camaraderie in there. So I think you'll really like it if you give us a chance. And somebody in today's show is going to win a free weekly membership too. So look forward to that and hope to see you in our Discord soon. All right, so let's go ahead and look at the game-by-game overview. Starting with the first game, which we have at 12 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Eastern. The New Orleans Falcons taking on the New Orleans Saints taking on the Atlanta Falcons. The Saints are a 2-point favorite on the road, minus 130 on the money line. This game has an over-under of 41.5. Let me go ahead and hit refresh because we should have the inactives now. They don't have inactives yet for the no, it's still a few minutes away. Okay. All right, then we have the Pittsburgh Steelers taking on the Cincinnati Bengals. There is a high chance of rain in this game, so we definitely want to keep an eye on that. The Steelers are a 2.5-point favorite on the road, minus 140 on the money line. This game is not expected to have very many points at all, with a low 36.5 over under. Like I said, they have 100% chance of rain, and then 46 degrees, 11-mile-an-hour winds blowing south-southwest. So good game for running backs, especially on the Bengals side. I like Joe Mixon with Jake Browning starting. So he's starting for Joe Burrow. So, yeah, they're going to rely heavily on the running game, I would think. And Pittsburgh's been pretty run-heavy of late as well. Then we have the Jacksonville Jaguars taking on the Houston Texans in Houston. The Jaguars are a 1.5-point favorite, minus 125 on the money line. A high over-under here of 48. They are indoors, so there's no weather concerns. Same thing for the next game. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers taking on the Indianapolis Colts. Colts are a 2.5-point favorite at home, minus 145 on the money line with a 45 over-under. Next game, we have the New England Patriots taking on the New York Giants. The Patriots are a 4.5-point favorite on the road, minus 220 on the money line. This game has a lowest over-under on the slate, I believe, at 35.5. Two offenses that have really struggled, although the Giants did look pretty good against the Commanders last week. For whatever reason, they've really played well against Washington and not really well against anybody else. So we'll see if that continues. It's 49 degrees, 9-mile-an-hour winds blowing to the southeast, and that's it for that game. We have the Carolina Panthers taking on the Tennessee Titans. Honestly, there's a lot of bad games on this slate. This is another one. The Titans are a 3.5-point favorite at home, minus 180 on the money line, a 36 over-under, so once again, very low over-under. 33% chance of rain, 53 degrees, 11-mile-an-hour winds blowing south-southwest. Another bad game. We have the Los Angeles Rams taking on the Arizona Cardinals. Rams are a 2.5-point favorite on the road, minus 150 on the money line, 45 over-under, so not too bad from a DFS standpoint, so that's good. We have the Cleveland Browns taking on the Denver Broncos. Believe it or not, this is actually one of the better games this week. The Broncos are a 1-point favorite at home, minus 125 on the money line, 37.5 over under, 39 degrees, 6-mile-an-hour winds blowing to the east, northeast. Then we have at 4:25 p.m. Eastern, the Chiefs taking on the Raiders in Las Vegas. The Chiefs are a 9-point favorite, minus 495 on the money line, a 42.5 over under. They are indoors, so there's no weather. Then we have the game of the week, in my opinion, the Buffalo Bills taking on the Philadelphia Eagles, or the weekend slate, I should say, but probably, honestly, the game of the week too. Bills taking on the Eagles. Eagles are a 3-point favorite, minus 160 on the money line. Highest over-under on the slate at 49. 41% chance of rain, so that could impact the scoring a little bit. 48 degrees, 8-mile-an-hour winds blowing to the east. Then tonight we have the Baltimore Ravens taking on the Los Angeles Chargers. Should be another good game, a lot of points. Baltimore is a -3 on the money line, minus 165. Baltimore is a 3-point favorite on the road, minus 165 on the money line, a 48 over under. So like I said, there should be a good amount of points, even if they're coming from the Ravens side, And then the game tomorrow night, the Bears taking on the Vikings. It's Vikings -3, minus 150 on the money line with a 44 over under, and that's indoors, so there's no weather. Let's take a look at the chat, see if we have any questions. I don't see any questions yet. Let's move on to the top plays. Starting with quarterback, CJ Stroud, once again, if you watched the podcast last week, I liked him a lot at home. Like him again this week, going up against Jacksonville. They've allowed the fourth most passing yards per game at 254.4, and Stroud has scored 20-plus DraftKings points in his last 3 starts, and he's also thrown for 330 yards or more in all 3 of those starts and thrown 8 touchdowns. So CJ Stroud is really coming into his own. He's a rookie that's really peaking right now. Probably, I would say, definitely one of the favorites for Rookie of the Year. So I definitely like CJ Stroud at home against Jacksonville. For value, I like Gardner Minshew. He's only 5,100 on DraftKings, 6,700 on Fanduel, $27 on Yahoo. Going up against Tampa Bay, they have allowed the 4th most fantasy points to quarterbacks this year, and they've allowed the 2nd most passing yards per game at 270.7. So he's kind of, Minshew's kind of been up and down all year, but this has been the best, or this will be the best matchup he's had so far this season. So I really like him as a value play in tournaments. I think he'll be low owned, and he could put up some pretty nice numbers. All right, at running back, we have Kyren Williams making his return to the Rams. He's 6,600 on DraftKings, 8,200 on FanDuel, $26 on Yahoo. He was activated off the IR yesterday. He's going up against the Cardinals, who have allowed the 3rd most fantasy points to running backs this year. And in fact, the last game he played was against the Cardinals. He had a career high 158 rushing yards on 20 carries with a touchdown for 24.8 DraftKings points. So I do think he's supposed to split some carries a little bit with who is it? I think it's Darrell Henderson or Royce Freeman or somebody like that. Royce Freeman, I think. Is supposed to split some carries with him. So, he may not put up the huge numbers that we're used to, but I still like him in a good matchup, especially if he can get us a couple touchdowns. So the other play I like at running back is Jaylen Warren. He's 5,400 on DraftKings, 6,900 on FanDuel, $26 on Yahoo. Going up against the Bengals, like I said, that game's supposed to be rainy, so they should probably rely pretty heavily on the running game. They have allowed the 3rd most rushing yards per game this year at 138.3. Cincinnati has. And his last 2 games, Warren's been very strong. He had 26.5 and 22 DraftKings points, and he had over 100 yards rushing in each of those games with a touchdown. So I definitely like Jaylen Warren. If the Steelers can get a lead, they could rely pretty heavily on the running game. So Warren's really taken off where Harris has continued to struggle. So I do like Warren at Cincinnati today. Going to wide receiver, we have Michael Pittman Jr. Going up against the Bucs. Like I said, they've struggled a lot against the passing game. They have allowed the 4th most fantasy points to wide receivers this year, in fact. And Pittman has seen a lot of targets lately. He has 8+ receptions in his last 3 games. And I would expect him to be targeted pretty heavily again against this Bucks defense that's struggling in the pass attack. All right, then we have Tyler Boyd with T. Higgins being ruled out. He's 4,600 on DraftKings, 5,600 on Fanduel, $16 on Yahoo. I know he doesn't have Joe Burrow to throw him the ball, but I think that he can get a pretty decent amount of targets, maybe even a touchdown. And for his price, he's a good value. The Steelers have allowed the seventh most fantasy points to wide receivers this year. So I do think that Boyd could be a decent option in the passing attack for the Bengals. Let's look at the chat. Still don't see any questions. Let's see. Going to tight end now. We have David Njoku. He's 4,100 on DraftKings, 5,700 on FanDuel, $20 on Yahoo. He's on the road against the Broncos, who have allowed the most fantasy points to tight ends this year. Last week, he saw a season-high 15 targets, so he's definitely being heavily targeted by the Browns, regardless of whether it's Dorian Thompson-Robinson or Deshaun Watson or whoever's playing at quarterback. It seems like they just continue to target David Njoku. So I do like Njoku today against that Broncos defense, which, like I said, they've allowed the most fantasy points to tight ends. He has scored double digit fantasy points in 5 straight games. So I like that trend to continue today. My other top play at tight end, I also like Evan Ingram against the Texans. We targeted him last week, and I like going against the Texans again today. They have allowed the second most fantasy points to tight ends this year. And Evan Ingram's in a good spot. I like him today. Going to defense, I like the Giants against the Patriots. They had 3 interceptions, 3 fumble recoveries, 4 sacks, and a defensive touchdown last week against the Commanders. And they're going at home against the Patriots, who have scored the second fewest points per game at only 14.1. And on the road, they've been even worse. They're only averaging 11.6. So even if they don't have as many pressures and sacks and interceptions and fumble recoveries and all that kind of stuff, they should at least keep New England, to a pretty low score. So I do like the Giants at home. I also like the Colts against Tampa Bay. They have been really one of the sleepers when it comes to fantasy defenses. The last couple of weeks, they've scored 16 and 26 DraftKings points. They have a combined 5 interceptions, 9 sacks, and they've only allowed 19 points in the last 2 games. So I do like them against Tampa. I think if Baker Mayfield makes a couple of mistakes, they could definitely make him pay. So they could be a nice tournament defense today is what I'm looking at. My favorite lock of the week, if you would, as far as game picks goes, is going to be the Chiefs against the Raiders. The Chiefs have won 5 in a row against the Raiders, and I definitely think they'll bounce back after they lost to Philly on Monday night. So I definitely like the Chiefs here. My upset of the week is going to be the Giants. Even though they're at home, they are a 3.5-point underdog to the Patriots, so I like them there. As far as Prizepicks plays go, Jaylen Warren more than 48.5 rushing yards. That number may have jumped a little bit, but I still like the over there. Like I said, he's averaged 106 yards rushing in his last 3 games, and the Bengals have allowed the 3rd most rushing yards per game. So I do like Jaylen Warren more on his rushing yards. I also like CJ Stroud more on his passing yards. Like I said, he has 330 plus in his last 3 games. To be more precise, he has 336, 356, and 470 yards passing in his last 3 games. The Jaguars have allowed the 4th most passing yards per game at 254.4. So I do like more on CJ Stroud. I also like the more play on David Njoku at 39.5 receiving yards. He's had 54 plus receiving yards in 4 of his last 5 games. And as I mentioned earlier, the Broncos have allowed the most fantasy points to tight ends. So Njoku more. I had it at 39.5. I'm not sure what it's at now, but I would like that even up to like 43, 42.5, 43.5, somewhere around there. If it gets any higher than that, I probably would avoid it. And take a look at the chat. I don't see any questions, so we're going to go ahead and wrap this thing up. Actually, let me go ahead and look at the inactives before we go. If there's any big names that are out. Let's see. None in Atlanta, New Orleans. Of course, T. Higgins is out for Cincinnati. Cam Taylor, Britt. Minka Fitzpatrick is out for the Steelers. Let's see. Noah Brown's out for the Texans, which was expected. Not really seeing any major names here. Yeah, it looks like most of the key guys we expected to play will play. So no concerns there. Traylon Burks is out for the Titans. Not sure if that was expected or not. But that is going to do it, guys, for this Week 12 podcast with the Thanksgiving games and the Black Friday game and everything. It's kind of a dwindled down podcast, not a whole lot of good matchups, but still a lot of opportunity for a DFS standpoint. So hopefully we'll absolutely crush it today. And we'll be back again next week for Week 13 as we continue to look to crush it in NFL, DFS, and Prizepicks. Thank you.